Hello and welcome to the FI Newscast, where we bring you relevant news in the food and beverage industry. I'm Susan Choi, and I thank you for watching. Today is Friday, July 28th, 2023. We have a great show for you today. Our special guest is Hunter Thurman, president of Alpha Diver. We'll get his insights into cognitive and psychological aspects of marketing. But first, let's cover some of the top stories from this week so far. We begin with general economy news, where concern still lingers over inflation. The Federal Reserve has announced they are raising interest rates to the highest it's ever been in 22 years. It's a clear sign the institution wants to stave off inflation, hoping that by increasing rates, it makes it more expensive to borrow money and thus tightens financial conditions. The Fed did say that they no longer expect a recession to begin this year and has seen a slowdown in growth. But how does the public feel? According to the conference group, latest data shows that consumer confidence is currently at its highest levels in 2 years. The index rose to 117 this month, beating expert estimates. We'll see how consumers feel later this year as the country continues to battle slowdowns and surges in markets. A fresh round of earnings has come in from top companies. Soda maker Coca-Cola's second quarter earnings and revenue beat Wall Street estimates, with net sales rising by 6%. The company also gave a rosier 2023 outlook. But executives remain cautious about the future, citing awareness of consumers' preference for private label brands. In food service, McDonald's reported stronger than expected results, with global same-store sales rising nearly 12% in the April-June period, and revenues growing 14%. The company attributed some of the growth to its recent marketing campaign featuring the character Grimace and its related Grimace birthday meal, which went viral on social media. And candy giant Hershey also had a good second quarter performance. Quarterly revenues came in at an increase of 5%, and the company also reaffirmed its 2023 net sales outlook of 8%. Leadership described the global performance of its product categories as resilient. Struggles continue to surface in the farming startup sector. App Harvest Inc. has filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy. The sustainable food company specializes in high-tech indoor farms and has been dealing with cash flow difficulties in recent months. The business, based in Kentucky, will be working with investors over the next 60 days regarding its sale. Meanwhile, indoor smart farm Square Roots has put a pin on commercial production at its 10,000 square foot farm site. The Wisconsin-based company halted processing of greens and salad mixes, and an undisclosed number of employees received layoff notices. A spokesperson for Square Roots says that they are currently transitioning from commercial distribution to a private business model. Some developments happening in the world of pizza. Restaurant Business reports that in the $50 billion market that is pizza, convenience stores are starting to want a piece of the pie. C-store chain Wawa already serves pizza in half of its 1,000 stores and has plans to bring in pies to the rest of them very soon. Casey's, another C-store giant, has already long been selling pizza and is making more plans to go further into the market, using guest feedback to improve on taste and quality. Casey's has more than 2,500 locations and can be considered the fifth largest pizza chain in the U.S. by unit count, making it just one notch below Papa John's. Meanwhile, Domino's has high hopes for its new partnership with Uber Eats, attempting to fix a carryout business that has been underperforming for the past 2 years. Elevated delivery prices have been part of the cause for a downward trend in Domino's demand, according to experts. Recent reports showed lower than expected earnings in their most recent quarter. And finally, one sandwich is set to make a profit of millions. Dat's Deli in Queens, New York is bringing in more than $150,000 a month, all because of its Dat Mac Patty. It's a Caribbean-style beef patty stuffed with homemade mac and cheese and other ingredients such as marinated oxtail, and it has gone incredibly viral. Dat's Deli is very active on social media with more than 50,000 followers on Instagram and an equally flourishing TikTok account with multiple posts on their menu offerings. If sales continue to be on track, this sandwich will bring in more than $1 million in profits this year. And those are your top stories. We're going to turn now to our special guest. He is the president of Alpha Diver, a consumer cognitive insights firm that specializes on brand effectiveness and growth advantage. They've worked with companies like Frito-Lay, Colgate-Palmolive, and Kimberly-Clark. We are lucky to have him on as a guest for the second time. His name is Hunter Thurman. Hunter, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Susan, great to see you. Great to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you back. The Dat Mac patty. Would you be willing to come to Queens, New York with me and Brian and wait in line to try it out?
As I was seeing those pictures and those videos unfold, I was thinking exactly that. I was like, how am I going to get one of those as soon as possible? They look pretty amazing. It sounds like they live up to the hype.
Absolutely, it looks pretty good. All right, thanks for that, Hunter. Okay, let's get into it. You had this cognitive insights research firm, and you have recently partnered with us, Food Institute, to present a great talk. We called it the Snack 50. It was an endeavor to present the industry's first measure of consumer psychological behavior. It was fascinating. Comprehensive ranking of top snack foods according to measurements like brand affinity, consumer momentum, and as you can see there, you referred to the top 10 rankings: Reese's, Lay's, Great Value, Hershey, M&Ms. Although it seems pretty clear why people would love these brands, but you had some great insights to share on that, and you have some updates to share in the Snack 50. What can you share with us, Hunter?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what the Snack 50 and any of our work is about is very simple: understanding and diagnosing consumer decision making out in the real world. How are people making decisions on what to eat, what to drink, what to consume? And one of the things we've been doing with these data is looking deeper at sort of everybody's darling Gen Z. What's happening with Gen Z relative to in this case snacking behavior. And the macro takeaway that we're seeing is that Gen Z is craving what I would call fast feel goods. The world has put a lot of pressure on us, on consumers over the past years. We're seeing that in our data, and Gen Z is reacting uniquely in a uniquely aggressive or a uniquely reactive way, that they're choosing things that help them feel good fast. And so in the Snack 50, which includes things like salty snacks as well as confections, the biggest gainer, what jumps the most, is actually fruity, chewy candy. Things like Sour Patch Kids, Skittles, Starburst, things like that. Fruity, chewy candy jumps up most dramatically when you look at consumers 18 to 25. We also see with that things like sours do really well. Food Institute last week reported on an interesting piece about the growth of spicy in away from home. Spicy and sour actually have a lot in common. They're very exciting. They're sensorially exciting. That fast feel good, that ability to take a little break, do something that excites your senses, in the now. That's a big piece of sour. Another thing that we see with Gen Z, the second biggest gainer in terms of snacking categories is meat snacks. Beef jerky and meat snacks jumps just behind fruity chewy candy in terms of voltage, in terms of what consumers are gravitating towards. And an interesting observation with that is that when you look at fruity chewy and meat snacks relative to the other categories like salty, they have something very interesting structurally in common. They're chewy. It takes a long time to chew. And there's a long-standing insight in the psychology world that chewing has real stress relief and focus benefits. I remember people saying, "Look, Michael Jordan's was always chewing gum in his playing days." There is science behind the benefits of chewing. It's very interesting that Gen Z wants to feel better fast, and really chewy things jump. And so if you're somebody outside of those portfolios, it's an interesting innovation toehold, or at least provocation. Should we be more chewy?
Hunter, let's move on to the Beverage 50. I know you've been working on that, possessing the same, core concepts as the Snack 50. What have been your findings in terms of Beverage 50? What is one good example of a beverage that hits the points of the Beverage 50 and why they appeal to the consumer?
Yeah, just as with snacks. So in snacks, it's feeling good fast. It's not, the back label. It's not things that have a purely functional appeal. That's what we're seeing, particularly among Gen Z. There's a different equation. It's not low fat, low carb, whatever. It's what will make me feel good. We're seeing very similar patterns on the Bev 50. And the Bev 50, much like the Snack 50, takes the top 50 beverage brands across multiple categories. And number one on the list, the number one performing brand in terms of what's really connecting with consumers, is Gatorade. Gatorade's the absolute best on what we call attachment. It would be very hard for consumers, especially young consumers, to give it up. It's very high on routinization, which means it's a part of your daily life. It's not something you do, infrequently. One of the adages in food and beverage marketing is, road trips. People say, "Oh, I get that on a road trip." It's like, we don't want to be road trip food. We want to be everyday food and beverage. Gatorade has achieved that. You look at a competitive brand to Gatorade like Powerade. Powerade's number 8, so not bad, but they'd like to be number 2 or they'd like to be number 1. Why? Why is Powerade seemingly a very similar product from a functional standpoint? Why is Powerade slipped below Gatorade? The simple answer is because consumers perceive Gatorade to serve that feel good now. It's all about the feels. They perceive Powerade to perform a functional benefit. So Powerade's more like medicine. Gatorade's more like winning. We were laughing around the office that no one dumps Powerade on the coach after a winning game. It's a meme that everyone's kind of familiar with. But what we're seeing in the market is that Gatorade is letting people feel good now and really aligning with that. Powerade is focusing and is perceived more in the functional, sort of nutritional hydration, what it does. And that typically is holding brands back, in spite of the fact that they're in the hydration category. Their job is to hydrate you. That's not really the job that they're performing in the hearts and minds of consumers.
As a follow-up to that, what are some of the most important things that beverage companies should keep top of mind when trying to attract new consumers?
Yeah. So in the Bev 50, we looked at top performing brands, Coke, Pepsi, things that everybody's familiar with. And then we incorporated some upstart, some smaller brands, smaller, but kind of small but mighty, smaller but making big inroads. I was talking about isotonics or sports drinks. Prime is a, no pun intended, prime example. Prime is making huge inroads in that space. So we included a range, and what we find in our data is that there are kind of these tertiles. There's the big established brands, there's the mid-range that have achieved some level of establishment, and the big question is, are they going to continue and really take off, or are they going to sort of fade away? And then the third grouping is the newcomers, the kind of purely new. And what we see then, again, looking at the way people perceive them and what's performing well, is that there's different things to focus on for those tertiles. So for the big established brands, it's all about fuel innovation to continually rediscover, keep the relationship fresh. If you're Coke, you're a known quantity, you're socially endorsed, everybody loves Coke or Pepsi. You've got to continue to give them a reason to rediscover and engage. If you're a mid-range brand, what we're seeing is you've got to really hammer that feel good now. That everything I've been talking about. So if you're a little bit smaller, it's all about feel good now, feel good now. This is something you can do. That's, in Gatorade's case, a bottle of feeling like a champion, not a way to rehydrate. That's what the mid-range brands need to be thinking of. And the newcomers need to really be thinking about usage contexts and occasions. They want to create these narratives for people. So it's not just a novelty, something I tried. They want to really focus on triggering for consumers. Oh, when I do this new thing I've discovered really serves that need. So there's different moves depending on where you are on the brand maturity trajectory.
Thanks again for those insights. All right, we're going to have a quick break. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll have more with Hunter Thurman from Alpha Diver. Stay with us. right, we are back with Hunter Thurman from Alpha Diver having a great conversation about cognitive insights, all of his wisdoms about the psychological aspects of marketing. Hunter, let's talk about LATAM Food Week. I'm very excited about FI's new endeavor with Cocina Sabrosa. It's going to be awesome in September. We're going to have virtual events, and we're going to have a great convention in Dallas, Texas. And I'm especially excited because we are going to have you as a featured speaker. You're going to speak about LATAM brands, I think. Tell us more what you are going to share with us, during that event.
Yeah. Hispanic food and bev, Latin American inspired or sourced brands are certainly having a moment, and it doesn't seem to be anything fleeting. It's ongoing. What I'm going to be talking about is really the rise of what we're coining Gen H. Everybody's been talking about Gen Z, and I talked about it even in this discussion. But really, when you look at the zeitgeist of food and beverage, what's really driving decision making, the drivers of decision and choice for Gen Z are almost synonymous with those of Hispanic, both demographically Hispanic culture, Hispanic consumers, and also from an attitudinal perspective. So Gen Z young consumers and Hispanic influence and culture are really meshed. And so I'm going to be talking about this meshed version of Gen H, and what that offers and what that means for manufacturers and retailers.
I want to talk, Hunter, even going beyond Generation H, going beyond Generation Z. I mean, there has been, for years now, there has been an explosion of Latin American influence, Hispanic influence on all aspects of American culture, American industry, especially in food and beverage. The stats are there. 30% of the population identifies as Latin American or Hispanic American, and it's going to get north of 30% by 2050. We've been seeing this trend again, for decades. What are your insights on, where we are, overall in terms of, Hispanic Latin American presence in the food and beverage industry, top of mind?
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up in Santa Fe, New Mexico. So in many ways, as all this has emerged, I'm like, finally, everybody caught up. A lot of it feels very familiar to me, but it's starting to really achieve mainstream. Modelo becoming the number one beer brand in the US, being a prime example that splashed across headlines. The short answer is that, as I sort of alluded to a moment ago, Hispanic food and beverage is growing because it aligns with the cultural zeitgeist. And what I mean by that is when we look back to even pre-COVID, 2018 to present, the last, sort of the old normal to the new normal, as many have talked about it, the COVID period, we see this continued upswell in wanting to feel better fast. The world has applied lots of stress to us as humans, and food and beverage is a great way, beyond just now, in general, it's a great way to emotionally self-regulate, to make ourselves feel better. We all know that. I mean, there's comfort food. There's not comfort laundry detergent necessarily. Comfort food is a thing. We get that. There's a lot of science behind that. And the ways that can let us feel better, there's really two very reliable ways within food and beverage. One is to explore new things, to discover unique sensory experiences. That sandwich you described, no one's ever heard of that. A lot of the ingredients are unusual. It's something I can't wait to try because I don't know what it will be like. If you said, hey, there's a new burger place, downtown, okay, I bet it's a really good burger, but I kind of know what a burger's like. That sandwich that you described, I kind of have no idea what it's going to be like. That actually is very emotionally exciting, and it gives us a lot of the feels. The other way is with these thrilling experiences, and I talked about that with spicy and sour and things like that. And just by virtue of its profile, a lot of these products have a bold or a spicy discovery element to them, and those are really aligning with what people are seeking.
Absolutely. And Hunter, tell me, in your opinion, from a cognitive standpoint, do you find some commonalities between the trends of Generation Z and the Hispanic kind of influence, like the way that they've been going if they are, closely aligned in the nature of, how they, ebb and flow within the marketplace and why, and what we can expect, in the future, especially regarding, Hispanic influence in food and beverage.
Yes, I think it's a really important question because I am fairly certain that many marketers are going to misconstrue this. And what I mean by that is that people, practitioners are going to perceive that the reason, Hispanic influence products, brands are growing is because they're being consumed by this this quickly growing portion of the population who's Hispanic. That provides a toehold. In many cases, somebody who self-identifies or reports as Hispanic, in terms of ethnicity, would be more likely to adopt some of these things or more familiar, whether it's something like electrolyte, which is an isotonic beverage from Mexico, now making big inroads in the U.S., or Takis. That's a toehold, but that's not why these things are growing and performing. It's because those brands, as I just described, are providing these discoveries, providing these bold experience that directly aligns with the zeitgeist, that directly aligns with the big desire, the macro desire of the marketplace. And when we look at our data, if I were to show you, a bunch of data tables and I were to delete, Gen Z or Hispanic off the top, they would almost be a 1-for-1 in many cases. The wage, and there is some demographic overlay. Gen Z is incredibly diverse, incredibly influenced by this Hispanic demographic growth, but that's not why. The total population 18 to 25 overlaying with Hispanic, their data, their drivers, their barriers, the decision-making criteria look very similar. And so I mentioned we're starting to talk about Gen H, because it's not that Gen Z is all Hispanic, it's that Gen Z has a high influence from Hispanic demographics and an almost total influence from the psychology that's driving their collective decision-making relative to lots of things, but certainly relative to food and beverage.
Fascinating insights. Thank you so much, Hunter Thurman, president of Alpha Diver, a cognitive insights firm. Hunter, thanks again for joining us.
Always enjoy it. Thank you, Susan.
Before we go, we're going to take a look at what's coming up in the food industry in the coming days. On August 1st, Starbucks releases Q3 fiscal year 2023 earnings. And on August 2nd, latest earnings as well for the Cheesecake Factory. Also on August 2nd, ADP comes out with its latest employment numbers. On August 3rd, latest earnings out for Chuy's Holding Inc. Same for Post Holdings Inc. on August 4th. And also on August 4th, the Bureau of Labor Statistics releases latest data on jobs in the US. And I want to mention once again that FI is partnering with Cocina Sabrosa to provide live stream coverage of its Food and Beverage Trade Expo in Dallas, Texas, from September 27th to the 28th. We'll have interviews with key figures in the industry as well as on-the-ground event coverage. You can go to foodinstitute.com for more information. And in an exclusive bonus, FI members can register to attend this event for free. Click on the link in the description of this newscast to find out more. And that's our show. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Susan Choi, and I want to let you know that we will have another great show for you next Friday, August 4th. Our guest will be Nona Lim, founder of Nona Lim, a clean label CPG brand. It's going to be a great chat. I also want to remind you to show us some love on social media. Like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channels. The support really makes a difference for us. Thanks again for watching. Have a great weekend and take care.